Good Wednesday morning. It is May 8th here, 2024. Just a little before 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Michael Clark with BAM Weather with your latest weather yield outlook here. Again, doing these on Wednesdays, so make sure you're following the channel here, the YouTube channel. Hit subscribe so you're getting alerted when we put these out every Wednesday. This is something fun to do, to share with you the thought processes here. Again, Wednesdays at 11 a.m., out by 11 on our YouTube and X channels here, the Weather Yield Show. So our growing season forecast chats is where we'll start here. Guys, in the last basically 9 days, there have been 1,024 severe weather reports in 9 days. It's pretty remarkable. And a couple of really big events to some devastating tornado outbreaks across parts of the country. A lot of wind and hail reports as well. That was from the 6th of May. This one here from yesterday, some nasty storms across southwestern Michigan and some really strong storms there from Chicago to Fort Wayne up towards that southwestern portion of Michigan there. But still 161 severe weather reports across the area, including places like eastern Iowa, northern Illinois, and southern Wisconsin, and even a couple of rogue tornado reports here in Arkansas and over across far eastern Ohio. So over 1,000 reports in 9 days. It has certainly been busy for sure. A look at the intro slide from the Morning Ag Weather Report. We send these out every morning to those folks who are subscribed to those packages. You can always inquire and learn how to get on these email lists here by visiting bamwx.com. But this is a look at the intro slide and look at the active suggestions and the pattern overall with these storm systems and these cold fronts in the charts here in the forecast. With these storm dates is a great way to look at what's coming. We take those pretty seriously. They normally do pretty well. If you see these dates on the intro slide, you can pretty much guarantee we're going to be tracking a system of some sort around that time across the U.S. Temperatures overall, the next 2 weeks, a good explanation would be seasonal. Maybe it feels a little cooler overall. The average the next 14 days is really going to average out to average May temperatures. How about that? Precipitation this week, we'll talk more about that here in just a second. Drier in the Central Plains. Wetter to the east, especially here across the Tennessee Valley. We'll talk about that in a second. And then week 2, the potential there for it to continue to remain a little bit drier, normal to slightly below normal precip across the ag belt for week 2 is the thought process right now. Look at the 2-week difference in the column relative soil moisture percentage. Crazy, right? To see just how much moisture we have added to the mix here, and kind of the changes where we've taken away a little bit too, right? It's interesting. The original idea to spring was that it could get drier into the east and wetter into the west. The question always is exactly where does that happen? There's really no way to know, but this was kind of the idea. It's just ended up being shifted east overall. The soil moisture percentile, the Sportless Index, when you look at the growing regions in general, there really aren't any problems in terms of moisture except for 2 spots. That would be central Michigan and western Kansas and the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas, where rain is needed. Moisture is certainly needed in those locations right now from a soil moisture percentile standpoint. The last 30 days, it's been warm. It's been warmer than average, especially east, especially across the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley. It's been very warm. Multiple mid-upper 80-degree high temperature days. And the rainfall departures have been also very, very active, from normal, especially like we talked about here. Big replenishments in soil moisture content here across the ag belt, which is good news. Where we've lacked on rainfall, again, Michigan, portions of Wisconsin, and especially Kansas and the panhandles there of Oklahoma and Texas. Okay, guys. A look here this morning at clarity and current radar. Again, as of May 8th here, you can see a thunderstorm cluster across Missouri, thunderstorms across southern Kentucky, northern Tennessee. There's a risk today, obviously, for some severe weather, for that to continue. This is a moderate risk now for an outbreak of possibly severe weather across southeastern Missouri, into the boot heel there, including places like Kentucky, or Paducah, if you will, Cape Girardeau, Nashville, Bowling Green. And this is the look at where the tornado activity might be the most concentrated today in the dashed area, but certainly, obviously, a hail and wind risk with some of these thunderstorms. Not to mention, with the training nature of these thunderstorms, there could be potentially some very significant rain. And this is a forecast of rain the next 24 hours. Again, this is all here in Clarity. This updates every hour. It's a 24-hour forecast. And I can click on the map and get the forecasted rain totals. But you can see northern Tennessee, southern Kentucky, potential flooding here. In fact, there is a moderate risk for flooding today, excessive rainfall, if you will, from the Weather Prediction Center across northern Tennessee, Nashville included in there, southern Kentucky, and then a slight risk from southern Illinois, Indiana, southeast Missouri, over towards portions of Arkansas. So heavy rain certainly in the forecast here with this system, along with probably an outbreak of severe weather this afternoon. Okay, when you look here at rain the next 3 days, you can see a little bit more of a suggestion of some heavier rain here across northern Iowa yet again, replenishing the soil moisture there. Michigan, southern Wisconsin, you're probably not going to complain about that rain the next 3 days, as there's more in there. Indiana, again, obviously the problem spot, which is where that severe weather epicenter is today, is across Kentucky, Tennessee, with some flash flooding. I imagine there's going to be some nasty images of flooding coming out down there. Rainfall the next 7 days. Let's take a look at this. It's the European and the American model. And this is the change versus 12 hours ago. I always like to show the trend, kind of how they've trended. Overall, it's a less active pattern than what it has been, but still showing the potential for rain. You can see the gaps in the rainfall here, okay, with seasonal temps. Now, the model did trend wetter versus its run 12 hours ago. The GFS had variable changes, but again, you can see the suggestion here of a little bit less activity in the Central Plains over the next 7 days, looking at the two weather models. We break this down into 5-day chunks. Got the European on the left, okay, the American ensemble in the middle, and the Canadian on the right. The American is the wetter of the three, and I think we're really in the camp this morning of the European model. In the 11 to 15, again, it's at to perhaps slightly above normal rain. It's not a huge signal for excessive rain. You can see the break here in the 1 to 5 day period. A huge signal on all the ensembles in the 6 to 10 across the deep south. Something to watch there. But the interesting thing to note is how dry the Canadian is in the 6 to 10, and the European is trying to get there. Again, the GEFS in the 6 to 10 a little bit too wet, I think, especially in the 11 to 15. But it's seasonal, right? Is the way to look at this right now, with not as active as it was, but still active. It's like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth with that, but that's just what it is. Temperature pattern, as I said, favoring the EPS data. Left column, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15 day period. Overall, you're going to be warm in the 6 to 10, warmer with a break in the pattern. This is good for planting. Okay, it's a nice reprieve there of warmer temperatures. And then in the 11 to 15, seasonal, maybe slightly warmer. Again, it's nice to see the seasonal to slightly warmer temps with the somewhat average or slightly above average precipitation forecast right now. Okay. Going later into the month, late May into June, looking in the North Pacific, we're seeing the potential here. We like to look at these pattern correlation techniques, and sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. It just always depends on other seasonal factors. But we're noticing the summer pattern starting to try and surface itself here. Late May, June would indicate possibly the heat building in the deep south and the ridge developing with an active flow pattern. Now this is, holy moly, this is a look at the European and the 16 to 30 day European weekly, which looks similar. Similar suggestion is there may be a southern ridge of some sort developing where the heat would be focused down here into the southern plains, and an active flow pattern would develop over the top of this and keep things active with thunderstorm clusters and seasonal temperatures. Seasonal in June is warm, right? And you look at this, and I don't know why it's so blown up, but you can see the 16 to 30 day precip forecast from the European Weekly. Certainly wet, and you could kind of see how that perhaps it's from this active flow pattern forecast with the ridge coming down here. And I think with time getting into summer, this is where this ridge can expand, and there can be heat waves and whatnot from that, but also thunderstorm clusters to continue to kind of plague the forecast with that. No reason to disagree with that for the time being. So we do think the end of May into early June does have an uptick in the strong to severe storm clusters and increasing heat signal in the south. And that's probably going to be the summer pattern, really, that can grow and blossom, if you will, and expand its reach. All right. So getting into the part of the weekly show here where we're going to talk about what's it looking like for growing season conditions for the yields as it pertains to weather. Well, this is a look here at the latest multi-model ensemble for summer, the NMME. So you see all the models here. By June, we're forecast to be right at or slightly above a La Nina. By July, we're in the Nina. And then by August, we're in potentially a strong La Nina. So the summer is showing a declining, increasing La Nina. And that's how we approach the growing season forecast with that in mind, and perhaps a very strong La Nina by winter. So that's for another discussion, another day. But the years leading the way with that charge right now are years like 95, 98, 2007, 2010, 2011, and 2016, being the most three recent years, 10, 11, and 16. From a perspective of looking at the growing season forecast, again, for June, you can see the suggestion here of where the periphery of the ridge might be centered. Okay, and you can see that in the precipitation patterns. You can see where there would probably be some issues, lack of precip to the south, but the active southwest flow pattern here and the flow pattern across the top where the northwest flow would be there, thunderstorm clusters and rain. And so as it stands currently, there's going to be times in June where I think this ridge can flex and bring in heat, especially into the belt. In June. That's going to even be more so prevalent in July. But the pattern here would represent this for precip on the left, temperatures, or on the right, I'm sorry, temperatures on the left. And where we continue to see that battle zone of warm east, cool west, it's going to keep it active. All right, it's going to keep it active there for sure. And there will be times of heat and times of cool weather, if you ask me. And that leads us into summer. The latest multi-model ensemble for summer has 80% probability for above normal temperatures for the eastern half of the belt here. All right, 80 to even 90% probability for above normal temps. And then more of the same here. I think what the model's trying to see is some sort of signal for a big ridge to develop and bring heat. You can see where the probability for extreme heat is a little lower here, and that's probably due to the activity in the pattern being modeled. But you can see that here, obviously, multi-model ensemble, the probability for above normal precip. What you kind of want to do, I always try to draw or picture this in my mind to give you an idea of what the model might be seeing, and that's that active, again, thunderstorm cluster pattern. It's like, what do these tell us for the yield? What does this mean? Yeah, that's great, Michael. What does that mean? Well, this is the thing. If we have a month where we're most concerned about precipitation drying up, we might go from the potential of it being wet and active to getting hotter and drier towards the end of summer. That's something to at least consider right now. There's a potential that the tropics get really active and that the ag belt could dry out and get warm. That, in and of itself, could bring in a faster end to the growing season than usual, for one. And for two, it factors into the yields, okay? And this is the idea right now is looking at these years I just talked about. The trend for corn, or the yield forecast for corn, would be 1.6 below the trend. 16 was above, which is the most recent. But, as you all know, 2007 and 2010, were below, and so was 1995. Now, 3 of the years below, 3 of the years above trend. So, it's one of those things where depending on how the overall weather pattern evolves, is there going to be a big, strong derecho that develops and puts us into the categories of where we could be below trend? Research says that that's a possibility this summer. A couple of really strong storm clusters for sure. I'm worried about that. If those don't happen, could we be in a situation where it's at or above trend? Sure. I mean, I can't say for certain, but I can say currently the research is citing a below trend corn yield based on probably very warm overnight low temperatures, for one, some excessive heat waves possible, and strong thunderstorm clusters. All right. Not to mention some of this is late getting into the ground. There's a couple of factors here weighing against the ideal record crop at the current point in time. The soybean forecast right now is for an above trend yield for beans. Interestingly enough, 16 is really throwing that off because of how good the beans were in 2016. There were 4 out of the 6 years that were below trend. 16, if you take that out, you're definitely below trend on the bean yield. So something to keep in mind. All right, something to keep in mind right now is how this is going to evolve. There's going to be some key factors here that we need to consider that I just mentioned, those temperatures, those storm clusters, and that may weigh into how things evolve this year. So we're going to continue to break all this down and keep you all posted. If you find you like the videos, you find any value in them, follow us, share it with a friend, post it on your pages, tweet it, whatever you want to do. If you don't find value in it, you didn't like it, then don't. It's to each their own. So we appreciate you all. Thanks for checking out the video today. Have a great week.